Well, today is Wednesday and we are at Xponential in Denver. And we are sitting here with one of our guests actually from last AUVSI, Dr. Leila Ribeiro. And Dr. Leila is a part of the MITRE team, the Open Generation Ingenuity team. Dr. Leila, so good to have you back with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, tell us if you could refresh everybody on what your role is at Ingenuity and Open Generation.
Yes. So I am the technology director for the Open Generation Consortium, and what we are doing, we are trying to advance technology, wireless communications in many new use cases. So as part of that role, what we are doing in the consortium is to identify new use cases where 5G could provide some benefit. And among the consortium members, what are the areas of collaboration where we can work together to enable those use cases? So once that is done, we actually deploy, we have deployed test beds, and then we perform actually the deployment. We implement those use cases, and so we really are very hands-on as an industry collaboration.
Well, last year when we talked, you were just really getting the 5G consortium, really getting into that. And just as a note, I'm on that, in that consortium. But what kind of progress, from your perspective, has the consortium made?
Yes, we have made a lot of progress since last time we talked.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that we have fully deployed an outdoors 5G private network, a test bed, which is consists of 3 base stations. It's a 5G SA standalone, and it is in upstate New York at the newer FAA-approved test site for drones. So we have been performing experimentation there. We have, as part of that experimentation, we have published a paper at the beginning of the year showing what's the performance from flying a drone at that network, at that 5G network, in terms of signal and other metrics, KPIs from the network. And we are currently performing, actually this week, a very interesting experiment, which is hazardous materials. So what we are doing is a use case for public safety, where the drone not only is operating on C2 using 5G, but also the mission data, the video is transmitted through 5G at high throughput. But not only that, there is a model, an AI ML model sitting at the edge of the network, recognizing hazardous material signs, and then identifying, annotating the video. So from the point of view of the public safety personnel, they can see not only remotely, they can see not only what is there in the incident zone, but they can also tell what substances, what chemicals are identified by the drone without having anyone to be at risk. So
that is outstanding. That really is. I mean, the idea of, and there are quite a few key players in this consortium, but the idea of being able to use landmarks and or other markings through machine learning to alert those that are actually viewing the footage is incredible.
Yeah.
Now, what's been the biggest challenge in this consortium?
Yes, I would say one of the...
Or with this test, rather.
Well, with this test, but I would say some of the challenges that we have faced include, first of all, the fact that some of the solutions that we are potentially, let's say, supported by 5G are not necessarily already deployed or already available in the market. That's one of the challenges. The other challenge, I would say, is that I see that a lot of advance has been made on the drone industry and on the comms industry, but there is still a need for more collaboration across the two industries. So I would say that I still see a lot of vanilla operations in terms of how much more we could be sophisticating, adding AI ML into many other operations. Another example is leveraging the network for things like detect and avoid. Mm-hmm. So we could leverage the network in terms of network-based a state sharing of the drone, where the drone is and headed and so on. Pretty much like remote ID, but network-based, and where the data could be aggregated and shared. So all the data sharing that is possible through 5G and through the network, let's say, coordination, I don't see a lot of that evolving right now.
That's really interesting. We talked with some guests recently about collaboration since we've been here, and this has been the theme for a long time, and it's true for almost anything. But this kind of closer connection between industry and the telecom industry in this instance. What do you think that will look like in the future, and how do we create an environment to foster better collaboration? And it actually may come down to more than just collaboration. It could come down to a matter of policy.
Exactly.
And protocol.
Yes, and I see advances in policy have been made since last year, and we see a lot of initiatives from the FAA, for instance, with the current Detect and Avoid ARC that's being launched, and for instance, the CONOPS for UAM and so on, and also FCC initiatives. And I want to mention also a collaboration initiative where I'm a part of the ACJA steering board, which is like an initiative trying to get more harmonization across the standards between the communications and the aviation industry. So that also helps. What I really think that is needed is more initiatives also like what we are trying to do with OpenGen, to really put hands-on and deploy these capabilities, right? So a lot can be said of what 5G supports, but put that to use for drone operations requires implementing, deploying, testing, and evaluation. We have created a sandbox, and I would like to really, open the opportunity for folks who are startups or folks who are operating drones and are not yet leveraging all the potential of 5G to perform, to join us in collaborating for experimentation, for testing and evaluation at the test bed. It's a sandbox to help advance the industry. So, and just on that a little bit more, there are many things when we talk 5G and drones. I see sometimes the reaction, C2 can operate over 3G. So that is true, but there are many things that you can do beyond C2.
Right.
And even for C2, let's start with C2. C2, you can have much more reliability. So you can do C2 with let's say a less, a smaller.
C2 is,
So, good.
just at a high level.
Command and control. So C2 is the basic operation that you need to exchange data, commands from the piloting command on the ground, sitting on the ground, to the drone and back. So thank you for that. So anyway, what happens is that if you are flying over an area where that is safety critical, over people and so on, you need additional reliability on the network. So 5G can help with that because capabilities like network slicing can support that. But on top of the command and control for the drone, you can also support the mission data. So think of a public safety. Right. It goes beyond just operating the drone. It goes actually into the video stream that is captured, that can be captured with very high throughput and low latency, and can be processed at the network edge and with artificial intelligence added to make decisions, to allow all those things can be leveraged from 5G. So it takes another step beyond just the vanilla, let's say, or communication link. And in addition to the detect and avoid, as I was mentioned, and so on.
Well, another big piece of this, of course, is 5G availability. And, right now, most of the telecom companies are advertising 5G. I think on my phone it's now 5G. Is this the 5G that we're talking about, or are we talking about now really more an expanded 5G? Because for us as an industry to leverage this, the availability has to be there. So are you going to, first I'll let you talk through that, but urban and then suburban and then rural, or?
Okay, so I want to clarify that the capabilities, several of the capabilities I'm talking about, could be supported even with 4G with LTE. So when we are really talking about drones leveraging cellular systems. Some of the more advanced capabilities would require 5G, but then again, they are probably more likely to be needed where you have, in urban deployments where you have already 5G deployment. So think of drones leveraging cellular networks, which could be LTE or 5G, and whenever the drone goes beyond the area of coverage from 5G, if there is LTE coverage, it would still maintain a connection because it can drop back, revert to the LTE coverage. So it will not lose connection. But probably it will have, if it's transmitting video stream, it will have a lower throughput, a different type of latency, but it will still be connected. So that's like a clarification on the 5G. And the 5G industry is expanding. So I would say that the MNOs, as you know, LTE is almost basically ubiquitous on populated areas in the US, and 5G is coming more and more. So yes, the 5G we are talking about is that 5G. Not all capabilities I'm talking about are yet available in this 5G, but I see that coming.
Right, right. How do you see this integration and this rollout happening? Do you see it really being used first by first responders, or will it just be maybe a broad application across many use cases? And on the inspection side of drone operations, you got delivery coming, first response. How do you see that coming to life, perhaps?
Yes, so I think that all of them, all of those use cases could leverage cellular networks and 5G. What I will say is that some may probably benefit more than others. So if you have a mission that requires data and data processing, for instance, let me just give you the counterexample. You are carrying a package, right? You're not necessarily transmitting video and so on. So you will probably require less data for that purpose, right? So your throughput requirements will be smaller. If your mission, be it public safety or inspection or something, requires data capture, transmit video streaming and then processing, making some decision, identifying if there is a person there, identifying if there is a hazardous materials there, and so on, then there is an additional value of doing 5G. But on your question on the use cases that are coming, I think that all of them will be benefiting. But more than that, the use cases that we don't see yet, which is the combination of multiple operators, right? So in the same airspace. UTM is something that cellular networks can support very well. And we are basically not there yet because operations are single operations these days. So even when there is a UTM, it's like a dedicated, a proprietary UTM. So when we are talking, we need to see more data sharing. Part of the use cases would be to include more of that data sharing and coordination of sharing the state of the drones, but sharing also across different operators. So that's also a use case that I see coming.
This is going to be really interesting. There's so many layers here. And the real question is, how will we implement, all of these applications, detect and avoid, UTM, BVLOS standards, remote ID, so all of that working together. And then of course we've been hearing about different potential safety corridors with which, lanes, if you will, for drone ops, especially around delivery. So this is going to get really interesting real fast.
This is going to get very interesting. And again, think of those corridors. Data coordination is key for that. So even, I will say that even as systems get more and more autonomous, that awareness on what is going on around that operation, and also for that operation in terms of sensors, needs to be shared. And that is the importance of the data availability and data sharing. So all of these things are going to evolve. Yes.
Well, here's a real big concern, I think, for all of us, and that is around cybersecurity. How do we keep all of this data that's being transferred safe?
Yeah, this is an area where we can do some very interesting evaluations leveraging the testbed that we have. So to ensure, 5G and cellular networks have already some built-in security, cybersecurity that is, it's powerful, but to test, additionally, what else can be done in terms of hacking and so on, we have discussed among the consortium members on potential tests and initiatives to experiment with exactly that, to do some evaluations on the security of the system for a given operation, for a given use case. So that's also an opportunity to further investigate and see what are the vulnerabilities as well.
Right. And when it comes to government-based projects, military projects, where data is clearly highly secure, is that also kind of a separate project to pursue?
So the Open Generation Consortium is mostly focused on civil operations, so we are not focused on military projects. So what we are really trying to do is to advance the industry and advance both like the wireless communications industry by demonstrating the value of leveraging cellular networks and for new operations, in this case for drone operations, right? So has been our focus.
Okay. And my last question is, beyond 5G, we're just getting started,
yes.
But beyond 5G, is 6G, are we thinking about that yet?
Okay, so I will say, I saw this, it's not my thought, but I really agree with something I saw recently, that 6G in a way will be a way to get 5G right, pretty much like we had 4G getting 3G right, you know? So, and what do I mean by that? There are several things that are a promise in 5G that are supported technologically speaking in 5G, but to get really the full-blown deployment that would provide the benefit and will move industry in that direction is yet to happen, you know? So I think that 6G will allow much more massive AI, for instance, which will be, let's say, the fully deploying the vision that we have in 5G right now, with more edge computing and the ability, more interoperability, more open interfaces, and the ability to have that intelligence at the network, at the edge of the network, and do things. So you can get data from the network, you can get data from sensors besides the network data, and you can do something about it right there. So that ability, I think that will be increased and enhanced with 6G. That's a lot of what I see, including with more AI, quantum computing, and so on. So
yeah, okay, that was about quantum computing. These are all game changers that are coming, and I know we're probably, 3-5 years away from seeing everything really come together and start to work well, the tech as well as the people and the systems and the policies and the protocols. So we're looking forward to talking to you next AUVSI in San Diego, and seeing what has transpired since May of 2023. So thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you very much. Our hope is that we can move more the needle towards showing the big value of those things that we talked about. And I really appreciate being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Leila Ribeiro, MITRE Open Gen Ingenuity.